Okay, we've been getting a lot of questions recently about how to structure things like snowflake tasks into Orchestra pipelines and products. And we wanted to make this video because it really gets a wider question of how people should be structuring data pipelines in general. So what we're going to do here is we're going to explore three different ways you can structure data pipelines. One is by domain, the other is by schedule, the final one is by engineering domain. These are not official names, I made them up. And we're also going to show you how you might evolve from this from sort of beginning state. So if we head to the Orchestra UI, I'm going to show you a sort of very basic pipeline that a data team that's quite early on might start with. So when you start early, the SLA for your data is probably uniform across everything you're doing. So that means there's only one schedule. In this case, I've just got two kind of parallel processes, loading some marketing data with a Python script, and then I'm, loading that to Snowflake and transforming it in Snowflake. I'm doing the same thing for sales data. And this structure is basically just like having one big monolithic graph, and it's how everyone kind of starts. So if you're sufficiently small that you can get away with this, I would do this. Obviously, then things things grow. So, you might find that actually some of this marketing data needs to be at an hourly cadence because, people are reaching out to leads really, really quickly. In that case, what's going to happen is you're going to have a separate pipeline that looks like this, and it's going to be on a different schedule. So to change this to hourly, you'd do that. And then that's quite a nice pattern, right? Because then every time you need a different schedule, you have a different pipeline. So if data needs to be hourly, data needs to be daily, data needs to be, once every 2 hours, 9 to 5, 3 pipelines, all with different triggers. Now, when that gets too much, you're going to want to split stuff out by domain as well. So, what happens if actually we've got loads of this? What happens if we've got, 10 different marketing things you want to build out? Like many tables, for example. In that case, you would basically have one pipeline per domain, or maybe multiple pipelines per domain if like different domains have different schedules. But it's just like another level of granularity. So maybe you'd have another like a separate pipeline for all of the data that needs to run through marketing on an hourly schedule. Maybe you would have a separate pipeline for everything that's running on a sort of like sales daily schedule. Oh wait, I need to publish this. There we go. So I'm going to make this like a sales daily schedule. Right, and then, this could be multiple sales processes, right? So maybe this is like your customers table, and then you're transforming the customers table. This is the rest of the data, for example. And then the other benefit of doing things by domain is you can restrict what people have access to. So, you could create a group called sales. You could give them permissions on the sales pipeline. It could be admins. And then, if I was just in the sales group, I wouldn't see all this other marketing stuff, which makes my life much more manageable day to day. Cool. So then the final pattern is sort of by like engineering domain. So because in Orchestra, we give you analytics, which is like, there's nothing here, but this is sort of aggregated at the pipeline level. So if I quickly create a product that has some pipelines in it, you'll see here that if I wanted to look at the metrics for a specific pipeline, I could. So, it really comes down to where you want to aggregate the metadata, right? It's like if you're happy just saying, I've got two monolithic processes that move data from source to S3. One runs daily, one runs hourly. I only care about evaluating it like as a whole daily and as a whole hourly, then that's going to be two pipelines that are doing that. If you say, no, actually I've got 5 connectors, I've got Salesforce, HubSpot, SAP, like Postgres and MySQL, and I want a different pipeline for all of those because you want to monitor the metadata for those different processes. It's going to be 5 pipelines, right? But the key point here is that this like this structure makes a bit more sense if you've got like a data engineering team that take care of moving data, and then maybe like an analytics team that basically write SQL and speak to stakeholders. And in this case, you would have your engineering pipeline. So let's call this our engineering pipeline. That is, basically loading data to S3, for example, and then, or ADLS, and then sort of running a snowflake task to stage that data. So we'll save that as our engineering pipeline. And then maybe we would have an analytics pipeline or many analytics pipelines, which are running transformations. And you can run these on a schedule, or you can actually have them triggered by multiple other pipelines, which is a good thing to do. And because we've got Snowflake, we can do things like data quality tests to make sure that the data that we're sort of analyzing is up to date. So you could say, get me all the rows where timestamp is in the last day. Something like that. We want this to be an error if there is nothing returned. And this is nice, right? Because if you have this little freshness test before all of your transformations, you don't actually even have to have this direct pipeline dependency. This could just run on a schedule. It's sort of like almost like a pub sub pattern in between teams. The nice thing is that you can extend this architecture too. So this would be our analytics pipeline. But say you had people that were even more downstream of analytics. Maybe they like a BI team. They could then also have their own area. So you could run like a Power BI refresh or like run a flow in Power Automate, and then that could either be triggered by cron or again link it up to the previous pipeline. So yeah, there are sort of 3 ways that you can structure and design data pipelines, and that's sort of how they relate to pipelines and products in Orchestra. Any questions, just hit us up and talk to you soon.